Ly Tu Diem. Hello everyone. Sometimes, life gives us moments that break our hearts wide open, moments where pain and hope collide. Fateful moment. Rich and poor Ly Tu Diem cried like a baby when CEO Toan's mother, once so distant and stern, whispered the words she had longed to hear. "I will help you." Her tears were not of weakness, but of a soul finally touched by kindness after endless storms. It was the first time she felt that love could be a shelter. But could this fragile hope survive in a world that had only shown her cruelty? The storm of fate often strikes without warning, tearing down the walls we build around our hearts. For Tu Diem, life had been nothing but a chain of sorrows. Betrayed by her own family, abandoned in her darkest hours, and hunted like a fugitive, she had forgotten what kindness truly felt like. When Toan saved her, it was already more than she dared to hope for. But what happened next was something she could never imagine. On that quiet afternoon, Tu Diem sat in the living room of Toan's grand home, her hands trembling as she held the cup of warm tea. Every corner of the house reminded her of the distance between them, his world of wealth and her world of scars. She expected judgment, perhaps rejection, especially from his powerful mother, who carried herself with the authority of someone who had seen and controlled everything. But instead of harsh words, the woman looked directly into Tu Diem's eyes and spoke with a firmness wrapped in warmth. "Child, you don't have to run anymore. From now on, you are safe here. I will help you." Those words struck Tu Diem like lightning through the silence of her fears. At first, she thought she had misheard. She had prepared herself for humiliation, for being thrown out, for being told she wasn't worthy of standing beside Toan. Yet here was a mother, a woman who could have destroyed her, offering protection instead. The weight of years of pain crashed down all at once. Tu Diem burst into tears, her sobs breaking the fragile mask of strength she had worn for so long. She cried not as a woman fighting the world, but as a child who had finally found shelter after being lost in the storm. Toan's mother, usually composed and stern, reached out and placed a gentle hand on Tu Diem's shoulder. In that moment, the gap between rich and poor, powerful and powerless, seemed to disappear. It wasn't about status anymore. It was about humanity, compassion, and the courage to embrace someone who desperately needed a family. Toan watched silently, his heart swelling with emotions he couldn't put into words. He had promised himself he would protect Tu Diem, but seeing his mother accept her so tenderly was more than he could have hoped for. For the first time, he believed that maybe, just maybe, love could win against the cruel divisions of the world. That night, when Tu Diem lay in the guest room, her tears had dried, but her heart was still trembling. She whispered to herself, almost in disbelief, "I'm not alone anymore." And for the first time in years, she fell asleep not with fear, but with hope. Tu Diem could not believe her ears. For so long, she had known nothing but rejection, insults, and threats. Every step she had taken was haunted by fear of being sold, abandoned, or betrayed. Yet now, in the grand living room of Toan's family home, the very woman she had been most afraid of, Toan's powerful mother, looked at her not with anger, but with a strange softness that felt almost unreal. Her tears spilled freely. They were not quiet tears of shame, but the helpless, trembling sobs of someone who had carried too much pain for too long. Tu Diem cried like a child who finally found a place to rest. Toan's mother reached out, her tone firm but calm. "You are not alone anymore," she said. "If you have been wronged, if they have tried to sell you like an object, I will not allow that to happen again. You are safe here." The words cut through Tu Diem's soul. Safe. She had not heard that word in years. Her heart ached with relief and disbelief at the same time. Could she really trust this woman? Could she let herself believe in such kindness after all the cruelty she had endured? Toan, who had been watching silently, felt a weight lift from his chest. For days he had feared that his mother would reject Tu Diem, that she would see her only as a poor girl, unworthy of their family. But now, witnessing this unexpected compassion, he realized that maybe love could indeed bridge the distance between rich and poor. Tu Diem's sobs softened. She lowered her head, her voice breaking as she whispered, I don't deserve your... Tu Diem's sobs softened. She lowered her head, her voice breaking as she whispered, I don't deserve your kindness. I have nothing. I am just a girl they wanted to sell. Toan's mother interrupted gently, and yet you saved my son's life. That is not nothing. That is everything. The room fell silent, filled only with the echo of her words. At that moment, the walls around Tu Diem's heart began to crack. For the first time, she felt the possibility of belonging, not because of wealth or bloodline, but because someone finally saw her humanity. She looked at Toan, who gave her a reassuring nod. His eyes held the promise he had silently made from the beginning that no matter what, he would protect her. And now, with his mother's acceptance, the fragile hope inside Tu Diem grew stronger than ever before. Tu Diem spent the next morning quietly helping around the house. She folded the blankets, arranged the flowers in the vase, and even prepared tea for Toan's mother. Every gesture was small, yet filled with sincerity. Though her hands trembled slightly, she wanted to show her gratitude. Toan's mother, who had always lived in a world of elegance and wealth, watched the young woman with careful eyes. At first, she was skeptical, wondering if this fragile girl truly belonged in her son's life. But as she saw Tu Diem patiently serving tea, bowing gently, and whispering words of respect, her heart began to soften. Meanwhile, Toan, though busy with work calls and documents, never failed to look over at Tu Diem. His gaze lingered on her every time she moved, as though making sure she wasn't overwhelmed. At one moment, when she looked back at him, their eyes met, and she quickly lowered her head, her cheeks flushing red. During lunch, the atmosphere felt different from the cold tension of before. Toan's mother asked Tu Diem about her past, not with accusation, but with genuine curiosity. Tu Diem hesitated, then opened her heart. She spoke about her unhappy marriage, the cruelty she endured, and the fear of being sold off like a worthless object. Tears welled in her eyes as she recounted those painful memories. Toan clenched his fists beneath the table, his heart burning with anger for all she had suffered. But his mother, instead of judgment, reached across the table and placed her hand gently over Tu Diem's. My child, she said softly, you have suffered enough. From now on, you don't have to face it alone. Tu Diem broke down. She cried like a baby, her tears falling uncontrollably. It wasn't only sorrow, it was relief, the feeling of finally being seen and accepted. Toan stood and pulled her into his arms, letting her weep against his chest. His mother did not protest. Instead, she quietly wiped her own tears, realizing that love was not about wealth or class, but about hearts that protected one another. That day marked a turning point. The fragile girl who once wandered the streets with hunger and fear was no longer alone, and the powerful mother, who once doubted her, now began to see Tu Diem not as a burden, but as family. Tu Diem's tears slowly turned into a smile as she felt warmth she had never known before. For the first time in so many years, she wasn't standing alone in the storm of life. Someone was holding her hand, and that someone was not only Toan but also his mother, the very woman she feared the most. That night, Toan's mother prepared a simple dinner, yet every gesture carried meaning. She placed a bowl of rice in front of Tu Diem, softly saying, "Eat well, child. You've suffered enough. Tu Diem could not hold back her emotions. She lowered her head and wept again, not from pain this time, but from gratitude. Toan watched silently, his heart swelling with pride and relief. He had fought for this moment where love overcame judgment, where his mother saw the truth behind appearances. He knew this was only the beginning, but at least Tu Diem no longer had to run. Later, when the house grew quiet, Tu Diem stepped out to the balcony. The night sky stretched endlessly, sprinkled with stars that seemed brighter than ever. Toan followed her, standing beside her without a word. She turned to him and whispered, "I still feel like this is a dream. Why would your mother choose to help me?" Toan gently took her hand, his voice calm but full of strength. "Because love reveals the truth. Diem, you've shown her your heart. And hearts are stronger than walls built by wealth or pride." Tu Diem leaned against him, closing her eyes. For once, she allowed herself to rest without fear. She realized she wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was learning what it meant to be loved and protected. But deep inside, both she and Toan knew that challenges were far from over. The world outside was still harsh, filled with people who would not accept their bonds so easily. Yet, in that moment, under the starlit sky, they silently promised each other, no matter how cruel fate might be, they would stand together. Life often tests us in the most unexpected ways. Tu Diem's tears, her struggles, and her fears were not signs of weakness, but symbols of the pain she carried from a cruel past. Yet, in the moment when she thought she had no one left to trust, the mother of Toan extended her hand and offered help. That small act of compassion changed everything. From this story, we learn that kindness has the power to heal even the deepest wounds. Love is not only about romance between two people, but also about acceptance, understanding, and protection from those around them. Tu Diem was a poor, broken girl who had been judged and mistreated. But one gesture of empathy gave her the courage to start believing in herself again. The lesson here is simple, yet profound. Never underestimate the impact of compassion. Rich or poor, powerful or weak, every person needs love and kindness to survive. A single act of goodness can give hope, restore dignity, and change the course of someone's life. In the end, true wealth is not measured by money or status, but by the ability to touch another person's heart. Just as Toan's mother showed, the greatest gift one can give is not gold or power, but acceptance and care. That is how broken souls are mended, and how love between rich and poor can truly flourish.